Good morning. Welcome to Reform Studios. We continue going through Joshua and the 7th chapter. So the history of the nation of Israel is recorded for our learning. Until we learn the lessons of what God intended them to learn and us, we will not have understood the history of the nation of Israel. So this morning, we continue in Joshua chapter 7. So far, we've looked at that sin violates God's clear command. We saw that in the first part of verse 1 of chapter 7. Secondly, we also saw that individual sin can bring about corporate guilt. And then thirdly, we saw that sin stirs the wrath of God. Now, this morning, as we continue in Joshua 7 from verse 2 all the way to verse 5, let me quickly read that. The Bible reads, Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth-haven, east of Bethel, and said to them, Go up and spy out the land. And the men went up and spied out Ai. And they returned to Joshua and said to him, Do not have all the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and attack Ai. Do not make the whole people toil up there, for they are few. Verse 4. So about 3,000 men went up there from the people, and they fled before the men of Ai. And the men of Ai killed about 36 of their men, and chased them before the gate as far as Shebarim, and struck them at the descent. And the hearts of the people melted and became as water. A very interesting episode there. What we see here is that the diverse consequences of sin in the life of God's people. And the lesson that we see here is that sin brings about self-confidence. Sin brings about self-confidence. That's what you see when you read verse 2 and verse 3. After this great victory in Jericho, or over Jericho as recorded in chapter 6, we now see verse 1 summarizing what was happening in their midst. Then the rest were not aware. And as they try now to conquer Ai, the next city to be conquered after Jericho, they were defeated. But really, we see this lesson that sin brings about self-confidence. And how are we arriving at this? Firstly, we see that when they went to spy out the land, they thought to themselves, this is a small city in comparison to Jericho. Why should we all go before this city? But secondly, we also see that nowhere does Joshua seek the face of God as to how they'll go about fighting this small city of Ai. But really, all this is with this background. We've just defeated Jericho, and we can conquer this small city. And we need to watch ourselves as Christians, that it's often after a major or a great victory in our spiritual work with God that we are vulnerable. It's very easy for us to be presumptuous, be full of pride, thinking that since God enabled me in the past to overcome this sin or to overcome this temptation, therefore I don't need His presence, I don't need to pray, I don't need to consult. I must use my experience and fight my sin. This is what we see from this lesson, that pride goes before destruction and the haughty spirit before the fall. Confidence is a good thing, as long as that confidence is in the right place. And as God's people, we must always be sensitive to the leading of the Holy Spirit. Never depend on past victories. Never depend on our experience. Never depend on our sanctified knowledge. We must daily walk in sensitivity to the leading of God, praying and seeking His face on what to conquer next. And this we see in the life of the nation of Israel, that the sin in their midst brought about a sense of self-confidence. Beware.